Welcome to FNF Victory Road Team Analysis. In this series, I will be analyzing the teams of the FNF Victory Road Draft League. In this particular video, I will be analyzing the Murican Braviarys, which is led by the coach Noobscrub, who is actually here with me today. So, say hello.
Hello.
So Noobscrub is going to be having this discussion with me about his team, the Murican Braviarys, his time in the league, and just analyzing the overall record, answering certain questions, and it'll be a fun little discussion. So we could just jump right in. And before we do that, though, I wanted to look at this picture that I have displayed here. It's the it's the group collage that you did that I really like. It's the initial team, and they're all in like this is the U.S. What is this? Is this Congress? Is this?
I don't know what it is. I just looked up a picture on the internet. I thought it was funny.
It's like it's a parliamentary body, but I don't know which body it is. I'm gonna assume it's Congress.
I don't know, but I got rid of. Now that I look at it, I didn't update that picture at all because like Gumshoes is gone, Braviary is gone.
Well, this is like the initial picture.
Yeah.
This is before the impeachment.
Yeah, before the impeachment. I kind of miss the old team a little bit. It was kind of funnier that way.
Well, it's a foreshadowing for the future.
Yeah.
Alright, so speaking of the old team, we're going to move into the old team. We have the initial team here with the 12 Pokemon that you have drafted. So I just wanted to ask, what was your thought process when you started drafting your team? What were you going for? What was kind of the main priority for you in this draft?
Well, originally I was going to randomize it again. So there was like a practice draft league before this. And we went on for like 3.5 weeks. Everyone, like I did 4 battles, everyone else did 3 because we were halfway through the 4th week before it ended. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to randomize it again. And then I had a better idea. Why don't I just draft the randomized team that went so well for me again? Because I actually went undefeated that season, I think. And I wanted the same team. I didn't want to risk it again, which is a good idea because as we found out, my luck was really bad this season. That's kind of a joke.
Yeah,
anyway.
We'll see this as we discuss the battle record, and you're consistently bad luck, unfortunately.
So, yeah, I went for Venusaur, Empoleon, Chansey again, and I had used Toxapex in the Gen 7 VGC. Like, I had made and bred a competitive team, and Toxapex was on it, and that was also kind of like a stally team. It had Celesteela and stuff. And I was like, I'll get Toxapex, and I did that. And I was considering Pokemon like Celesteela. I don't think I went for it. I got Hoopa again, and I also... So Hoopa, Gallade, Braviary, those were all Pokemon from my other team. I wanted Registeel, but Registeel was taken. I also wanted Mandibuzz, but Mandibuzz was taken, so that really limited my options a lot, and that was very disappointing. And that's why I got... So a lot of the Pokemon that I picked, like, they were kind of like really big backup picks. Like far down the line backup picks, which was kind of disappointing, but that's okay. I don't remember exactly what order I picked the Pokemon in, but I think...
I know for sure you went for Mega Venusaur first.
Yeah, I remember that. And I'll always go for Mega Venusaur first. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
It's interesting that you mentioned Celesteela and how you didn't get Celesteela. because actually looking at that main core that you have of Chansey, Mega Venusaur, and Empoleon, Celesteela would actually kind of round that out somewhat nicely because it has that ground immunity and the psychic resistance. So
that's actually a good point, and I'll consider that for next time, but don't tell anyone.
Everybody who's listening, get Celesteela before Noobscrub does. No, I'm kidding. But it wasn't even draft this league until Startoad took it in the middle of the season as an exchange, which was probably, in my opinion, was the most effective exchange. I think that's really when his team started becoming a huge threat. That really rounded out his team. That Pelipper, Swampert, Celesteela core was really good for him. So it wasn't taken this league. So maybe next league, who knows? You might get it.
I think it's definitely going to be taken a lot faster next league.
Yeah, after people saw.
I know how powerful Celesteela was because I used it, and it was ridiculous. And I'm not going to like reveal my plans, but it's definitely on my radar for next time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that definitely also your team compared to the other teams, if 1 was stall and 10 was hyper offense, I'd put you at about a 2. So you, I think, had the most stall team out of all the teams. And I definitely commend that because both you and Tiller, you being the stall and Tiller being the hyper offense, it's tough sticking to that, I think, in a draft league compared to going balanced, like for example how I did, because your opponent more or less has an idea of what you're going to do already. So I commend the dedication that you have to stall. I know a lot of people don't like stall, but it is a viable playstyle and it's part of the game. And so like I like that you're enthusiastic about it when not a lot of people are.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate making other people frustrated and rage quit the game. It's kind of my passion.
And making people want to commentate a potentially endless PP stall. But we'll get to that later, don't worry. Before we move on, why did you give Braviary the Z attack and Blossom the Z any privileges?
Well, I mean, I was stalling. I was going for a stall battle, right? I knew Koopa would be holding a choice item most of the time, so I was like, I gotta give my... I'm not gonna be attacking with anyone anyway. I don't really care who gets the Z crystals, really, that much. Which is really why I gave a Z attack to Pugamuku later.
Right. Because it has no attacks.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
That was pretty funny. All right, well, that was the initial team, and we'll just move on to the battle record. So we have the battle record displayed here. Overall, what did you think about, like, any trends or any feelings you had about the battles? Well, let's start with overall.
Well, I don't think we should look at it overall, because if you look at it overall, there's a lot of red, and I don't like that color. So if you just look at the first 3, I think it looks a lot better that way.
They're definitely... I think after the Great Tacticians, it was a little bit tough, because in a way, Kudo, and even Kingfuse to an extent earlier, kind of displayed tactics that worked against your team, and I think
that's when people started to figure me out.
Yeah. So I think that knowledge, and because your team, like I said, is like a 2 on the stall to hyper offense scale, I think because people expected that stall, they knew what was coming to them, and so they used those strategies that were presented there for the most part.
And it's not just that, I think I also implemented this stall poorly, because it's not just that it was stall. If it were stall, but implemented in a way where it was versatile, maybe I would have had a better chance, but it was always the same 3 stall Pokemon every time. Always Empoleon, Chansey, and Venusaur, and
Yeah.
I needed to have more versatility. And on top of that, I think I get into this later in my notes, but I think I was weak to boosting Pokemon, and I had Haze, but that's kind of just a band-aid cover-up. I needed to find a better way around that, and I still don't know how I would get around that.
I think one of
Yeah.
the things too, you're correct in the boosting. I think the other element of that is even more so than boosting. I think substitute.
Oh yeah, that's also a good point.
Yeah, substitute I think is your team's absolute worst nightmare. The only thing that really you had, because sometimes the substitutes were 101 HP substitutes, and then Chansey can't even break it with Seismic Toss. So, the only tool you really had in your toolkit for a substitute was Hyperspace Hole to hit behind it. And Hoopa isn't really that defensive. So something I think that can really help you is Infiltrator. Infiltrator's really good at bypassing substitutes. And you could still go Sol with Infiltrator. I mean, Golbat. Golbat's really good. I'm not going to be using it next league, so that's my recommendation for you if you want to get around those substitutes. And you could still Toxic, because it bypasses the substitute.
That's a really good point. I had forgotten Infiltrator even exists, to be honest.
Golbat has Haze too, actually. Golbat seems like it would be the perfect Pokemon for you. I love Golbat.
That's a really good point. I actually hope no one takes it now.
I won't. I'm not going to take Golbat. I'm using a completely different team aside from Volcarona.
It actually looks like I think I'm kind of lucky in a way because no one really likes Stall except for me. So I don't have that much competition.
I think people generally take one Stall Pokemon and then are like, okay, I don't want any more. So, all right. So we're gonna move into. Well, before we move on, is there a trainer that you were really excited to face, and is there someone who you were really terrified to face?
There were a couple people I were like nervous about facing, like Kuro and Colin and you. Those were people that I think the stakes were significantly higher than than the other battles, just because I know these people. I like for you, it was a chance to like set my record straight. Like I had 4 losses in a row, 4 or 5, I can't count. It was 4, I think.
4.
I could have made you not more undefeated. I could have made you not undefeated anymore, and then made me less bad, I guess. I don't know. And then with Kuro, he's like one of my really good friends, like my best friend even, and that was a really like tense battle. And then with Colin, we also practice a lot and we're good friends, I'd like to say. So there were a lot of high stakes there, especially for him since he needed to get a +5 or a +6 in order to get a better spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, those are good points. In terms of who you were like maybe really excited to face, like someone who you're like, okay, yeah, this is a good matchup for my team. Was there anyone who stood out like that, or?
No, honestly, every time I was building a team, it was just a really terrible experience because I don't know, I just felt like there was always a Pokemon on the other team that just completely broke my team, and whether I lost or not was really dependent on whether the other person saw it, pretty much.
Well, that's definitely a lesson that you could take forward in the next time you draft. I think that you're definitely going to be a strong drafter next time because you have all these things you're aware of from this time. So let's move forward into the individual weeks. We had the first week versus Elemental Dragons. That was King Fuse's team. So this particular battle is pretty infamous.
Yes.
If you want to say why.
Oh man, I think I have PTSD from all the flinches that went on.
So the scenario is that you have Mega Venusaur out, right?
Yeah.
To counter Sandslash. And Sandslash goes for Icicle Crash, and it uses it 9 times, right?
I think it was 8 times, and
8
6
times.
of those turns it flinched.
6 out of 8 were flinches, and then the 2 turns it didn't flinch, you used synthesis. So you didn't...
one of the turns was a miss, and one of the flinches was also a critical hit.
Yeah, so not the best luck. And then we also saw Kyurem use Substitute. I think this was the first display of Substitute being utilized against your team in an effective way. I think you did do pretty decently against this team for the tools you had, and Dusclops did particularly decently against Kyurem, especially when it burned it, but he also had 2 clerics, so that was tough for you.
An especially long battle. I think it was over 100 turns.
Yeah, it was for a long time. It held the record for the longest battle, and in fact, in the regular season, I think it does hold the record for the longest battle, not including the playoffs. So
it would have been a lot shorter if he used knockoff on Chansey.
Yeah, and if you listen to my commentary, you'll hear, oh, is he going to use knockoff for like 20 turns? Okay, so that was the start. We move on to the Murican Braviarys versus Butcher Blissies, and in this battle, you actually did really well. The first... Right off the bat, you used Gallade pretty effectively, and then once Gallade went down, Hawlucha was the big Pokemon on Butcher Blissies that seemed threatening, also using Substitute. But you did have one wall versus Hawlucha that was very effective, and that was
Toxapex, I think.
Yes, it was Toxapex. You used Haze there really well, and ultimately, it just couldn't be broken through.
Yeah, I think every Pokemon on my side got 1 KO except for Empoleon, which is actually kind of strange now I think about it, because Empoleon is usually the one that's getting the KOs when I actually do well. So, I think that means that I did a pretty good job team building this time. If like every Pokemon served a purpose, so I don't know. If Toxapex got a KO, I mean Toxapex's attack stats are not very well, so not very good. I'm having trouble talking today.
Toxapex was a really good choice for this matchup in particular. The only Pokemon really threatening it being Xurkitree, and then Mega Venusaur could just come in on Xurkitree pretty easily. So I think this was actually a pretty decent team to bring versus Butcher Blissies. We'll move on now to Rio Grande Rapidash. And this was also a win for you, and a pretty big margin for winning too. So what was the strategy that you approached this battle with?
Trying to remember, because it was a while ago.
Well, it seems like you had your standard core, right?
Yeah,
and then This is the first time you used Tapu Bulu. That's what it was, I think.
Oh yeah, Tapu Bulu was good, and then I think yeah, I have to watch the battle again. But for my notes, I remember that I was very scared of boosting from Miss Magius, and also moves like scary moves like Heal Belt from Togekiss.
From this battle, I think one of the best things that you had was that you got Stealth Rock up, and that wore Togekiss down really fast. And because of that, I think that was really what led to your quick victory, because it wasn't that long of a battle, actually, especially for a stall team. So let's move on to the Great Tacticians.
Alright.
This was actually Kudo's last battle in the league before he dropped out, and you were actually winning like 80% of this battle.
I think I was up 3-0 or something.
Yeah, it was a 3-6, I think, score, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And then there's a particular move that is really devastating versus your team, and it was used.
So he used Substitute and used that to boost up using Coil or something, and I had a plan for him using boost moves. It was Haze on Dusclops, I think.
Yeah.
But Dusclops can't recover, so he got rid of it pretty quickly, and that's a problem with Dusclops, which is not very cool. I guess that's why it's tier 5.
Yeah, if Dusclops had Recover, it would be tier 2. Like, 100% for sure. But it doesn't.
So I was just stuck there against what's it called?
Zygarde.
Yeah. I was stuck there against a Zygarde that was boosted under a Substitute, and I couldn't attack it, so I just lost.
Yeah, and another problem was that, well, I guess for you it didn't matter as much because you didn't have any flying types, but 1,000 Arrows hits everything. You just can't avoid that. It's extremely powerful. Actually, I think in the next league, some leagues have Zygarde banned, some leagues have it at tier 1. I think in the next league we're actually going to have it banned just because of how incredibly powerful it is. It is Ubers for a reason. And this isn't to detract from Kudo's win, of course. He did play that pretty well, but I think Zygarde is a little bit too... Like, if it didn't have 1,000 Arrows, that'd be one thing, but 1,000 Arrows just makes it a little too broken.
I mean, even against my team, if it was still just Earthquake, my team is still not that great against ground types because I have Empoleon and, well, that team specifically did have Empoleon and Toxapex, which are both weak to ground.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, once Dusclops went down, I think that was a really big game changer. Alright, moving forward, we have this. After this battle, you exchanged Braviary for Xatu. So, what was your reasoning there?
I was noticing that I was getting boosted on a lot, and I was also scared of other Pokemon that could boost. They could just sit under a Substitute, or not even under a Substitute, and just boost their stats and then sweep my team. I needed a Pokemon with Haze, and there were not that many Pokemon left. Xatu looked like the best choice, and I chose it. I needed to get rid of someone, and it was either Gallade or Braviary, and I had never used Braviary even in the last season. So I just got rid of it, I guess.
This was the week that people were trading their mascots, because you traded Braviary, and then Startoad, I think, this week traded Dunsparce. So it was like the departure. This is where like people are like, okay, things are getting serious. I don't need my mascot for novelty. I need something good. So that was an interesting one. I know we had discussed, you had asked me for advice on what Hazer you should get, and I think the options were Xatu, and then I think you were also considering Murkrow.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if Murkrow would have been a better choice, because it could have Eviolite and also Prankster.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't think it would have mattered, because using Haze first doesn't really matter if Haze isn't enough to fix your team.
Yeah, and outside of the Haze Murkrow, if you're going all on defense, it's not really... It's kind of passive. It's not terrible, but it's just... It needs a lot to be good defensively, and even then it's not even that great, so... Yeah. Alright, moving forward, we have your match versus Wooper Blooper. And in this match, it seems like it was a lot more one-sided than it actually was. Because effectively, 3 Pokemon on Wooper Blooper were dead. They just were alive and then were dead when they'd switch into Stealth Rock.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate, because it looks like I got 6-0'd, and I did get 6-0'd, but I mean, I'm not trying to detract from his win or anything, but I did. They were like, they weren't dead. They were in purgatory, kinda.
Yeah. They couldn't come out anymore.
Yeah, they were just trapped in their Pokeballs until the battle was over.
Yeah. Or to
then,
like take a hit as a switch in and then die to it. They were all effectively fodder.
in addition, this is instance 2 of bad RNG for me, where I used Zen Headbutt twice in a row and missed them both.
Yeah, Zen Headbutt wasn't your friend.
This is actually the best RNG out of the bad RNG that I've had, so...
I think Toxicroak also was extremely scary versus your team. And again, it used Substitute, a theme that is being carried on. I think because it had that dry skin ability and it couldn't be toxic, it could come in on Empoleon very easily.
Yeah. I don't remember who I used Zen Headbutt on, but I feel like if it was on Toxapex, it would have
it was on Toxicroak.
That would have just got rid of the problem a lot easier.
The thing is, it was behind a Substitute.
Oh yeah, but if I used it twice... Was it using Substitute again? I don't know, it's a lot complicated. I'd have to watch the video again.
I believe it was behind a Substitute and it was attacking Gallade, and I think it took down Gallade in 2 hits or something. But I'm not sure. But yeah, Zen Headbutt, not your friend.
Yeah, and on Smogon it recommends Psycho Cut, and then I remember I showed you a set a long time ago, like last draft league, and you were like, why are you using Psycho Cut? And I was like, because Smogon told me to. And you're like, no, you Zen Headbutt instead, and now I know why it recommends Psycho Cut.
I feel so bad for recommending Zen Headbutt.
It's alright, it wasn't your fault.
I think definitively of everybody in this league, you definitely had the worst luck. For sure. 100%.
Well, it's not over yet. There's still another battle coming up.
Oh shit, I better not jinx it for myself.
Well, no, I wasn't talking about your battle, but I was talking about the battle that comes up where I got... I'm not going to spoil it.
Oh, okay, got you,
You could definitely get worse. You could definitely get worse luck. I mean, I hope you do. I don't want to be the... I'm just kidding. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
Well, next we have the trade, the impeachment, rather. And
oh, yes.
In this transaction, Gumshoes was exchanged for Pyukumuku.
Yes, this was a great point in my team.
So,
it was time for him to go.
Why Pyukumuku?
It was for a similar reason. I didn't know what Pyukumuku was until this. Like, I knew about Pyukumuku, but I didn't know any of his stats or anything. And I saw he had like 120 in both defenses. And then I saw that he doesn't have any attacking moves and he only has status moves, and I was like, wow, this Pokemon's perfect. And then I saw that he has Unaware, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need this Pokemon, why didn't I have this earlier? So I just got it. And then it came into play later, like in week 9, where I almost forced an endless PP battle, so that was awesome. It could have been awesome, but not for you, Noel.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, not for me. Alright, well, we have another Pokemon here trying to deal with those boosters because of Unaware. But I didn't really see Pyukumuku much aside from that week. But
yeah, that was the only week, I think.
But moving forward, we have the match versus Bayside Divers. And this was another kind of unlucky one for you.
I think I definitely could have won this one if I'm not trying to say that wait, which one was this again? Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, Bayside Divers versus Sir Roland.
I definitely think that Sir Roland deserved this win, and he played really well. But I do think that if I hadn't gotten as bad RNG, I wouldn't have lost Chansey, and with Chansey, I probably could have won because it came down to the last Pokemon.
Yeah, Staraptor was the last Pokemon. Cobalion also had all its Zen Headbutts hit, which must have been a slap in the face considering it used Zen Headbutt like 5 times that match.
Well, I mean, I just try not to think about it, I guess.
But it was a good battle from both sides. It was definitely a lot closer than the usual match is. Usually it doesn't come down to just the last Pokemon. Usually a loss is greater than that, just in general in the league. So it was really
it was very
close.
refreshing.
So it was well played by both sides, definitely. Next we have versus the Detroit Dunsparces. And this battle, it started with pretty much exactly what you didn't want.
Oh yeah, Megas, this one is like the most frustrating battle that's ever happened in my life. Cause like what happened was, I practiced for like hours pretty much preparing for Mega Swampert, so much that I knew exactly how much damage he does against Mega Venusaur. And then when the battle happens, I panic and leave Mega Venusaur in. I'm like, I think my thought process was, I'm sure Swampert will hit low, you know, because you know how like the damage it deals is like randomized a little bit. It's like, you know, it'll be fine. He'll hit low. And and then I'm shocked when he doesn't hit low, because it was probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. I can't believe I left Venusaur in just on a hope like that. I just did not think it through at all, and it was honestly the most disappointing thing, and it really killed a lot of morale that I had for the rest of the draft league. It was just disappointing.
Yeah, it was a really unfortunate moment to witness. I mean, fortunate for Startoad, but unfortunate for you, and I think that paired with Chansey being knocked off pretty early was the conditions in which he was able to sweep with Mega Swampert. And I definitely did get that sense of lessened morale, and I can't imagine like how tough it feels knowing all that, like knowing the damage and then leaving in Venusaur. It is a bad moment, but I know that you have a lot in you. Like you are very capable, and I think that next league, and you were mentioning earlier that you really want this fresh start to be able to draft a better team and to not have a big record weighing on you. So I think that next league you'll definitely be able to shake out of that.
The more that I think about it, actually, I've never actually drafted a good team by myself. The only good team I drafted, it was randomized. So I don't have that experience of a good team made completely by myself. So it's something that I'm still learning, I guess. I have a little bit of a delayed start behind everyone else, and I guess it's like I don't know how to feel about it. Like, it was a fluke that I got a good team the first time. You could look at it that way, and I don't know what that means, but it just means I have to like find out what was good about the first team and replicate it on my own as for the third draft league, I guess.
Yeah, and just take these lessons of like what did you struggle with and how could you counter it better. Have a million a million ways to deal with substitute.
Yeah, it's just I never really realized that like the first team that I made. It's just a sudden realization I just had about the first team. It wasn't something I drafted. It was random. It was lucky, you know.
It was pretty standard you though. Like it was a generally solid team, so I think it's something that you could have drafted.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving forward, we have actually your battle versus me.
Oh yeah.
So in this battle, you didn't bring Mega Venusaur, you brought Blossom.
Yeah. I was at this point I still was trying to win, but I cared a lot less about winning, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. The lowered morale.
But losing still sucked.
Yeah.
And so I was still planning for the team. I was still planning a lot. I still put like hours into planning and stuff. Well, for this battle at least, not for the next couple ones. And so, what happened was I decided I would try and bamboozle you because I knew you knew that I was gonna bring the core. So I didn't, and I didn't bring Venusaur because I always bring Venusaur. I know that everyone knows that I love Venusaur so much, so I just decided not to bring Venusaur and just take everyone off guard.
And you also didn't bring Empoleon.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't bring Empoleon either.
Which was actually something that I was relieved about when I didn't see Empoleon, because I brought Magneton for it just in case, but I thought you were going to go crazy offense with it and use Earthquake on Magneton and go super, like, anti-meta. So I was a little nervous to use Magneton against Empoleon had you, like, if you brought it. My game plan here was basically taking out Chansey and then going for the sweep. And that's pretty much what happened. I didn't think that you would expect the Golbat. And I was a little nervous if you had made it into the playoffs, because that kind of strategy is the kind of strategy that only works once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I was really surprised to see Blossom though. I was pleasantly surprised because at least Blossom was used.
Blossom did pretty well in the beginning, at least.
Getting those quiver dances up is nice. I wish Blossom had a bigger move pool, like Fiery Dance or something. Just give it something.
It's super disappointing. Blossom gets like 2 types of moves and that's it.
Yeah.
Like grass and I think a little bit of fairy.
And poison, and that's it. Alright. Moving on, we have Grand Island Jolteons. This one was the infamous... well, infamous to me because I knew exactly what your plan was.
Yeah. So I was counting on him bringing Wobbuffet. And he did bring Wobbuffet, so this was my plan. I still wanted to win. I wasn't gonna throw the game because that's against the spirit of fun and friendly. You know, I'm not gonna lose on purpose. That's like bad sportsmanship. But I had an alternate plan, and that was to force Wobbuffet. That was to trap Wobbuffet with Block from Pyukumuku, and drain all its PP. Wobbuffet gets like 80 PP. I calculated it, and Pyukumuku would also have 80 PP. So that would just be 80 turns that Noel would have to sit there commentating nothing, and so it didn't happen. Unfortunately.
Oh man! Thank God.
So that was unfortunate, but it could have happened. I think that in a better world, Noel would still be commentating that match.
To this day.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, if you watch the replay, you see Pyukumuku switch in at the weirdest times, because I think you were really trying to go for that.
Yeah.
And then Thundurus is ultimately what swept. I think it was able to because it really didn't have something. I think next league, definitely you and a few other people who didn't have a ground type are more aware now, like, get a ground type. Because electric moves, not having immunity to electric can be really terrifying. But yeah, that match commentating it, I was just scared because I knew what could have come. And now we move on to these final exchanges. You exchanged Gallade for Bronzong.
Yeah.
So what's the reason that you got Bronzong?
Well, I was planning on countering. So I was actually talking with you, and we were talking about the ways that I could counter Colin's team, and you were like Bronzong and Seismitoad, and I was like, okay, I'll do it, because I was gonna get screwed over by Mega Lopunny, and there was another Pokemon too, but I forget what it was. It's Azumarill, I think. What was the other Pokemon? Scizor. Oh yeah, that was gonna ruin my day too. But basically, Colin probably has one of the scariest teams, to be honest. Mega Lopunny is like deadly. Anyway, it was just it also was scrappy and scrapped, so that means I couldn't even use Dusclops. So I just had to. I drafted those Pokemon, but then I did nothing with them because at this point I was just like so. I don't want to say I was done with the draft league because I still love Pokemon and I still love the draft league, but I was just like
the motivation, the lack of motivation.
I was just not motivated anymore. I built the team in like 20 minutes. You even suggested for me to bring Hoopa, and I forgot about it because I was just like not even focusing when I built the team. I think I was focusing on making like these weird movesets just for fun. What did I bring? I brought Swords Dance, Venusaur, and I almost brought Swords Dance and Polion, but you talked me out of it. Instead of Force Specs and Polion.
I also talked Colin. I tried to talk Colin out of Curse Decidueye because I was like, nah, you can't outstall Noobscrub. Like, that's just not something you could do. But I guess with Substitute, that's the key.
Well, you can't outstall me if I'm not running Stall, I guess.
Even then, though, if you're running Stall, Substitute is a big problem.
Yeah, it's true. But I still think that Swords Dance Venusaur actually proved to be pretty good, and I might run it again for real someday.
Yeah, it didn't do bad. It was definitely the most threatening Pokemon on your team. I think that the Mega Venusaur with Swords Dance really did cause him to sweat. And had he not had Decidueye, I think it would have been a lot closer of a match. Or if you had Hoopa.
Yeah. That was actually went surprisingly well for me until Decidueye happened. But even then, I almost PP stalled it, so... I mean, at the cost of my entire team, but... That's a trivial fact.
Alright, well, that was the final battle. We're moving on to looking at the Pokemon, and I just want to ask a few questions. First of all, it seems like you didn't use Araquanid.
Yeah.
Was there never a time that you thought Araquanid would be good? Did you just not know how to use it? Did you... Because, like, I'm thinking if you use Empoleon, it's kind of like, okay, well, why use Araquanid if I'm using Empoleon or Toxapex?
There were times I almost planned to use Araquanid, but then other Pokemon just seemed to be better for the job. And Araquanid, like, I was thinking Sticky Web would be good, and then I realized Sticky Web just really isn't good for my team.
Yeah, it's more for offensive teams.
So I don't know why I thought that when drafting, but it was just really a big, like, error on my part when drafting, and I was just kind of stuck with it, and I never really got rid of it, I guess. And I don't know. The other thing is, I guess, like, I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And the other Pokemon that I think, like, Hoopa and Gallade are great and all, but they need better defense. So in the future, I'm looking at offensive Pokemon that are also, like, not gonna die in one hit.
I think another thing to look at, too, is offensive Pokemon that hit on both sides. Because Hoopa can hit on the special side, but it's optimal on the physical side. So when planning against your team, I barely even put any special defenseman into anything. Investment. Special defense investment into anything, because I knew that your hard hitters were going to hit on the physical side. So, trying to find, too, also a Pokemon that hits on the special side really hard, but also on the physical side really hard, I think would be really good for you.
That's actually a good point. I wonder what would have changed if I ran Special Hoopa at one point.
You could have gotten some nice surprises. You could even run Mixed Hoopa. It's not optimal, but in Draft League, sometimes you don't go optimal. Sometimes you have to go gimmicky to throw your opponent off and to hit them where they don't expect it.
Yeah.
Is there a Pokemon that you had on your team that you liked using a lot?
Venusaur. I really liked Venusaur. I also like Empoleon a lot, but not as much as I like Venusaur. Chansey is cool, but Chansey just doesn't have enough move slots for all the moves that I like to run on her.
I remember at one point you were surprised because you were like, wait, Empoleon is that good? I think it was like you hit something really hard, specially, and you're like, oh wait, its special attack is really that good?
Empoleon always surprises me. Like, it'll hit something hard, and then I'll realize, wait, Empoleon doesn't suck.
Yeah, Empoleon is really good.
It just surprises me. I think the reason for that is because I ran and went back in Gen 6. I'm gonna sound like a old guy just for saying back in Gen 6. But when I made my first competitive team was had Empoleon, and it sucked. It was terrible, and I always lost. But my Mega was Mega Camerupt because it lost speed when it Mega evolved, and I was like, I should run a Trick Room team based on that. And it turns out that just because it loses speed and you can run a Trick Room team around it doesn't make Mega Camerupt viable when other people are running way better Pokemon. Anyway, that's besides the point. My point is that Empoleon kept losing and stuff, and I realized I also ran Aqua Ring on it, so that's kind of a factor, I guess. But I guess I realized that I had it in my head that Empoleon isn't that good. Anyway.
Well, it definitely checks out that those are the three you like the most because they have the highest usage rate, 90, 90, and 80 for Venusaur, Empoleon, and Chansey, respectively. I think moving forward that you are definitely going to perfect your stall. I'm actually really looking forward to it, seeing those lessons that you learned from this draft league moving forward. I've seen what you're capable of, and I know that you were really demotivated in this league after the Startoad loss. But I do think that you're really going to hone your abilities, and I'll help you too. I'll be helping a lot of people. I'll be making a video that kind of has an outline on how things you should watch out for with drafting. But I'm really glad you participated, and I'm glad that we got to see your signature stall. And although I'm glad that you didn't get the endless PP, that was good. And what else was I gonna say? I think that moving forward, there's a lot of things that you can be aware of, particularly substitute and boosting moves, and how to face those with the kind of team that you want to make, and making a stall team that isn't super predictable and can surprise people a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask, just in general, if you had any if there's any new perspectives that you gained, and any things that you've learned from this league.
Of course. So, from the last league, some of my Pokemon had never fainted before. I'd never lost Mega Venusaur, and it had never fainted in the 4 battles that I fought, and stuff like that. So I thought Mega Venusaur was invincible. Nothing could touch it, Mm-hmm. It just had so much HP and so much defense, and how could it die? And then I realized, actually, there's a lot of ways it could die, and my team isn't so invincible as I thought it was, especially when my team is against 12 other hyper offensive teams. Well, not 12, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. There's gotta be a couple Pokemon that counter my team, so I can't have... How many Pokemon is that? There's gotta be dozens of Pokemon, and some of them have gotta find weaknesses, or some of them have gotta have synergies that my team can't cover. So I realized that building a stall team is a lot harder than I thought it was based on last season, and it's just I took it a lot more lightly than it really is, and I kind of have a more realistic view of it now.
I see. So it kind of like grounded you in reality and made you more aware.
Yeah.
It made you more aware that unaware is good.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Mega Venusaur is still broken, but like, I mean, he's the best Pokemon in the world, but I mean, he can faint. I thought it was just impossible for him to faint before. Don't get me wrong, he's by far the best Pokemon, way better than Charizard.
Yes, we need to have at least one Charizard, one knock against Charizard in this video, or it's not complete.
Yeah.
So, I also wanted to ask, what did you think of some of the other teams? Is there any team that particularly intrigued you or made you like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't face that team, or anything like that?
Edgar's team was particularly, there were a bunch of teams that I was like, for example, all the teams I was worried about facing, Kuro's team, your team, Colin's team, I fought them all and I lost against them all, but there was one more team I was worried about facing, that was Edgar's team, and that's because it had Charizard on it, and it would be Venusaur versus Charizard, and I know for a fact, despite Venusaur being infinitely superior, that this is Charizard X, and Charizard X gets Dragon Dance, and also Substitute, I think, and also Roost, and that's not very good for Venusaur. And I know that I had Pyukamuku. That was my strategy against Charizard X, and the only way I think that it would have lost is if it had Outrage, which is actually not that far-fetched, but it was the best thing I had, so it was really a risk. I win if it doesn't have Outrage, and if I lose if it does. So it was really worrying whether I would face Edgar and whether he would bring Outrage on Charizard. Because if I lose Charizard, I mean, that's just the biggest insult in the world, you know?
It was really funny because there was two matchups that I think would have been the most provocative, and that was you versus Tiller, the king of stall versus the king of hyper offense. And then it was you versus Edgar, Venusaur versus Charizard, and neither of those happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Tiller in particular, I really wanted to see you fight because it was kind of like the whole unstoppable force versus immovable object. So I wanted to see how that went, but maybe next league we'll see that. And let's see, anything else? Do you have any final thoughts? Anything else you want to say about the league, about anything that happened within the league, any other trainers in the league, Pokemon?
Yeah, I actually do have one thing. I was gonna make the joke that I always make about me not wanting to do any more things. Let's just get real. That's kind of stale at this point. Anyway, I did have one more thing. That battle earlier, which one was it? It was against Sir Roland. I never said what kind of bad luck I had.
Oh, okay. Well, I think you did mention the freeze on Chansey.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were 2 crits before that, and that freeze also was a critical hit, so that, I mean...
Yeah, and that.
Yeah, so that was... I might have mentioned that in my notes that I sent you.
That was pretty bad luck.
Yeah, it was fun. You know what, I'm just on a tour to see all the RNG that Pokemon has to offer.
RNG tour. This season was RNG tour of Pokemon and 101 Ways to Die, the Venusaur season, or 1001 Ways to Die. I forgot which one it is. But
I don't know. It's been, how many deaths have my Pokemon have? I don't know. I should be like in jail or something.
But really, really glad that you joined for this league. It was a pleasure. As you know, I think very highly of you, and I think you have really cool tactics, and I appreciate your dedication to stall as a play style. I really think I really like enthusiasts you know, and I think you're a stall enthusiast, and so I look really forward to seeing what you bring in the next league, and I know you're going to rock it. You're going to do great. So thank you so much for joining, and this was the team analysis for the Murican Braviarys with Noobscrub. Very happy to have you on, and yeah, join in for more team analysis videos. There's still a lot more to come, and I'll see you then.
Thank you.